What's up, Crossing Church? How's it going? Can you keep your applause going for our Plant City campus, our South Shore campus? We love you guys. Miss you. Can't wait to be back. And but we have an amazing team. Pastor Hector's over at Plant City holding it down for me, and so I'm excited. They're gonna get some of that flavor. Well, we are in a series, and I'm actually going to wrap it up today. It's called Greener, and so I've got the privilege to speak on the last two rivers of a message on the four rivers that flow through or out of Eden, and we use those as a launching point to show what God has wanted to do as He flourishes your life. And so, as we dive into this, I just want to stop to say God is on the move at the Crossing Church. He is 100% doing radical things. And what's incredible is to see it happening now, because we were just unprepared. And God has prepared us. He has taken the time, like a good father, to prepare His children to receive the blessing of His presence. And here's the thing: if you get something good before you're ready, it'll ruin you. But God is faithful to make sure His children were ready. I mean, we're doing things. You've seen the Bible College take off. Now we have the prophetic school of ministry that is just launching here. And God is prepping. You've seen healings, prophetic words. God is operating. The Spirit has been moving. Baptism in the Spirit have been happening at every campus. Deliverance, healing. God has been setting the stage for a move of His Spirit. And it's not just happening around the country, it's happening here. And if you give God space, I'm telling you, He just might do it today. Amen. How many believe in a today God? He'll do it right now, today. Plant City, South Shore, He's gonna do it today. And so I'm gonna wrap up this message, but today, the title of this message is From Distraction to Traction. From distraction to traction. And we're going to start with Genesis chapter 2. And in Genesis chapter 2, it tells the story of these four rivers, because it says that now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. And from there it divided and became four rivers. The name of the first river is Pishon. Now, Pishon, you heard Pastor Hector speak on this as he began to challenge us with the question is, has your river dried up? It's a powerful question to ask, right? Because Pishon flowed through the whole land of Havilah, and there was gold there. And the gold in that land was good. Now, I ain't never met bad gold. If you have any bad gold, I am accepting it. If you feel like the gold in your possession is bad, I will bless you by removing that wickedness from your life. Just bring it right on up. And there was bdellium, which is a resin that comes from a plant, and they use it in oils, and it's a substitution for myrrh many times. And then onyx stone is there as well. And then the name of the second river, y'all might remember Pastor Jonas spoke on this, is Gihon. Now, that one has got to be a river flowing through Plant City, because tell me that don't sound southern. Gihon. What's that river doing? Gihon out here. That's what that river does. It takes you right out. In fact, we know for sure that Eden was here, because I'm pretty sure the rivers are actually the Hillsborough River, the Alafaya River, Little Manatee, and that ditch that runs right through the Tampa campus. That's the four rivers of Eden. But the Bible says something different, so we'll go with the Bible on this one. And so it says it flows through the whole land of Cush. And the name of the third river was Tigris. Now, some of your scriptures might say Hiddekel, and that is the Hebrew word. The older word is Tigris, but Tigris, and it flows east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And some of those are in the news right now. You might see people talking about it because those two rivers are drying up. In fact, the Euphrates is the driest it's ever been in history. Parts of it are just land now. They're just cracked ground. And there actually is a prophecy in Revelation about the angels that are locked up underneath, the fallen angels that are locked up underneath the river. And when it dries, they'll be released, and a third of the earth will be destroyed. And so enjoy that tonight as you sleep, okay? No, but don't let fear, listen, this is the thing. I never let fear stop me when I'm reading Revelations or things like this, prophetic words, because a lot of times the enemy would love to use fear to cause us to stop and to cower away and to lock away and to start like getting weird prepper vibes, right? We just go into a basement somewhere and carry all your food down there, like whatever. That is not the mission. The mission is to go out. So when you see these things happening, we should increase, not retreat. And so our call is to increase because we know his presence is coming. The Lord is on his way. That is a sign. That is a good news for us believers. If you're not a believer, sorry. Bad news for you. So Tigris represents, the word Tigris, it means quick, rapid. It can mean sharp. And another meaning that it has is a keen mind, a keen mind. And a keen mind is important, because someone that has a keen mind, they have the ability to think clearly and to understand what may not be obvious. So a keen mind is able to think clearly and recognize what might not be blatantly obvious. The Proverbs tells us that when you got a keen mind, so it says when you a good understanding or a keen mind produces favor. So what happens is you need to start praying. You want to be praying for favor. He don't give favor to people without a keen mind. Because if you have favor without a keen mind, you won't recognize that it comes from him. You'll think you did it. And so sometimes stuff starts wrapping around us and you'll see crises happening and you can be collapsed by the crisis. But if you have a keen mind, you'll recognize that God is able to move and you'll recognize his hand in the midst of something. It produces favor. The prophet John Wayne, he's a Plant City prophet. That's our kind of prophet over there. He said, life is hard. It's harder if you're stupid. So I don't know if that's not scripture, it should be. You can go ahead and write it in your Bible. Just put it right there. Life is hard. So the Euphrates River represents fruitful living. It's a fruitful life. It literally means fruitful. So John 15 tells us that my Father is glorified by this. So get ready, because he's about to tell you how God is glorified. He's not glorified in your stuff. He's not impressed by your house. He's not impressed by your car. He's not impressed by your job. He's not impressed by how athletic you are. None of that stuff's fine, but that doesn't give him glory. It gives you glory. It doesn't give him glory. He ain't worried about that. He's about to tell you how he receives glory. The Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit. The fruitfulness of your life is how you glorify the Father. And it says that, and you prove that you're his disciple by the fruit in your life. It's strawberry season in Plant City, which is a sacred time. We have a holy festival called the Strawberry Festival. The Jews have been celebrating it for millennia. The festival of the Lord, we call it. And the thing about strawberry season is you got all these farmers, and there's a million things that could stop a farm, that could just distract a farmer. There's wind and weather, there's rain, there's fungus and mold, there's little tiny nematodes and insects. There's market issues. There's all kind of things that can distract a farmer. But when a farmer wakes up in the morning, the thing that hits his mind is, how do I grow more fruit? How do I produce more fruit from this crop that I'm on? And so when we get up in the morning, I want you to put on that same farmer's attitude. How do I produce more fruit from the land that you've placed me in? You've placed me in this life, and you've placed me here for a reason. And I know it is not to grow my own field, it is to grow yours. How do I produce more fruit in my life? And Galatians tells us the fruit of the Spirit is what? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Listen, the big idea that I want you to get away from here today is this. To flourish in God's purpose, we must remove distractions. Distractions are the killer of purpose. You see, the thing is, we all face distractions. Right? How many have ever, you just faced distractions? How many are distracted right now? Every Camp Plant City distracted? South Shore? Everybody distracted. How many have ever, some of y'all just raised your hand. You have no idea. You just saw me raise a hand. You were like, you just woke up. You're like, oh, what did he say? And you were so distracted. You were so distracted. You were using your phone like, what was it? Yeah, I give my life to Jesus. Like, you know, like I didn't ask that, you know. And so, how many have ever been distracted by the word while someone was preaching a different word? All right, okay, so none of y'all are holy. Okay. So I've been sitting in service, and the pastor will read the scripture, and then I don't stop when he stops. I just keep reading, and then I get distracted by the message after the message. Just me. And then I wake up 30 minutes later and go, what'd he say? Distracted. We all get distracted. David was distracted by his own desires. You know, some stuff is in us that distracts us. The scripture tells us that we're tempted when we're carried off or pulled away, not by outside forces, but by our own lusts. So there's something in us that can be a distraction. And there are relationships. Samson was distracted by ungodly relationships. Think about that. Here, he is distracted by this woman that is stealing his purpose. Distracted by ungodly relationships. And here's the truth. Some of y'all are dating your distraction. Some of y'all all up in a relationship with somebody. They just a distraction. And so some of you have surrounded yourself with friendships that are a distraction. And here's the marker. Longevity of relationship does not surpass purpose in relationship. So if just because I've known you since I was 3 doesn't give you the right to pull me out of my purpose. Okay, can you be free with that? Some of y'all are going to go home today and break up with your distraction. So Eve was distracted. This is interesting. She was distracted by what she didn't have. You ever been distracted by what you didn't have? I mean, it's one thing to be distracted by what you have. It's another thing to be distracted by invisible stuff. Like you ain't even got it. It's not even in your life. It's in your neighbor's life. It's in your parents' life. It's in somebody else's life. And you're distracted by their stuff. Or you're distracted by a promotion that you might get or want to get or something that's out there that you don't even have yet. And it's just consuming you. And it's easy to be distracted by what you don't have. Some of y'all was distracted driving in today. I saw you. Texting like crazy. So distracted driving, I'm going to save some lives today. This is a PSA, okay? And so distracted driving, I was doing some research on this, and the Highway Safety Administration put this little statement out. It shook me up. It said, if you are driving and look down, you say you're going 55 miles an hour, and you look down at a phone or a radio or some other distraction, or that cheeseburger you sucking down, or whatever it is, right? And you look away for 5 seconds. That's the same as driving the length of a football field with your eyes closed. I know there's a lot of blind drivers out on I-4. Boy, there's Thunderdome out there. And not only that, but if you look down at your phone and you text somebody, it's the same effect to your reaction time as if you drank 4 beers in an hour and just took off driving. Now, most of you would never dream of driving drunk, but you'll text drive all day long, right? It's so tempting. It's right there. It's an easy distraction. My daughter was in an accident this week. She ran into somebody from a stopped position. I was like, baby, you out here doing miracles with car wrecks? This is unacceptable. And so she was sitting at a stoplight, and she thought, well, I'll answer this text. And she reached over and answered the text. And this next thing I learned about is what got her. It's called the hangover effect. And so when you look away to engage a distraction, it can take up to 27 seconds for you to refocus on the road ahead and for your brain to turn off of the distraction and back onto the task at hand. It's called the hangover effect. So she was sitting at the light. She reached down to text. She saw, you ever seen a car like move up a little bit or wiggle or whatever you just thought they went? She thought they went and it just went. $2,600 worth of damage. How fast can you go from here to no? And so there are distractions that will kill your life, take it from you. There are distractions that are taking your life right now. You don't even know it. They have 100% stolen your purpose, stolen your ability to get into the presence of God. Distractions are deadly. Now, there's in Luke chapter 10, there's a story here, and I want you to get this because it's a powerful story of distraction. And many of you have maybe heard this story before, but it's the story of Martha and Mary. All right, so if your name is Martha, I'm sorry. We're going to pick on you today. So it says in verse 38, now as they were traveling along, he, talking about Jesus, entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Ain't that sweet? And she had a sister. Oh, there's always that sister. Some of y'all are that sister. And she had a sister called Mary. And Mary was also seated at the Lord's feet. Now hold on to that word also. We're going to get back to that in a second. Also seated at the Lord's feet and was listening to his word. But Martha was distracted by all her preparations. And she came up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do the serving by myself? I don't know if you read it like that. I just read it all kind of sass. Like I'm detecting high levels of sass in this story. So Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to the serving all by myself? Then tell her to help me. This is like some 3-year-olds. Daddy, tell them to give me that toy. I said, y'all fight it out. I don't know who the toughest one will survive. That's what I know. It's a MMA in the Pippin house. And so, but the Lord answered and said to her, Martha, 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 Martha. You are worried and distracted by many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken from her. You see, in verse 40, it tells us real clearly what's going on here. It says, Martha was distracted. That word distracted literally means pulled away. Martha was pulled away. And see, the opposite of distraction is traction. A lot of times we just run the word together. We're like, distraction. Well, that's 2 words. It's distraction. It's the word traction comes from the word trahir, which means to pull. So distraction is pulling away. Traction is pulling to. So the opposite of distraction is not the ability to focus better. It's the ability to pull things that matter toward his purpose. There's a difference. You're not distracted because you can focus, but you can focus on your distractions. And that's the problem. And so it's not an issue of focus. It's an issue of, are you pulling that stuff into his purpose and into his presence, or is that stuff pulling you? You see, traction is the ability to pull life to the place it needs to go, regardless of the conditions, while distraction is life pulling you where it wants to go, regardless of your purpose. It looks something like this. I've got life and all that stuff that's happening to me. And Jesus is over here. And this stuff wants to pull me out of his presence because it knows, the enemy knows if he can use this stuff, which is sometimes it's fine. It's good stuff. It's not all wickedness. It's just stuff, though. And if he can use stuff to pull me, situations, busyness, activities, calendars, schedules, athletics, if he can pull whatever it is, he used that stuff to pull me out of God's presence, then he don't even have to do anything. I've already lost. But if I can manage to grab all this stuff and say, listen, I don't care what you say, you coming with me. You're going to come right with me inside this presence. Schedule, you coming with me to this presence. Activities, you coming with me, you're going to submit to his presence. Life, you're going to submit to his presence. Everything around me has got to submit to his presence, not the other way around. If you don't, you're walking in distraction. Yeah. And I tell you this verse, the enemy will show his hand. And so Martha is just tore up right here. I mean, she's so mad. She's so angry. It's just all in her right now. And so this demonic stronghold that she's struggling with, this wound in her life, reveals itself. You ever seen someone just all of a sudden explode out of nowhere? And they just start throwing up all kind of anger and hatred and blah, 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 blah. And you did this and you that. And so this is that moment for Martha. And that enemy that's at work in her life is revealed. And there are 5 things I see happening right here in this moment. Because it says, but Martha was distracted with all her preparations. You see, distraction is the enemy of godly discipleship. Watch the difference between her and Mary. She's sitting right here, it says she was distracted with her preparations, while Mary is listening to his word. She's distracted with her preparations. Mary is distracted with his word. You could be, you're going to find traction in his word, but there's a pulling away by your agenda. And as long as your agenda is not submitted to him, you cannot be discipled. The act of discipleship requires you to surrender all that you are to all that he is. You can't call yourself a disciple if you're not surrendered. Please stop. Just call yourself a churchgoer. Call yourself American. I don't know what you want to call yourself, but just don't call yourself a disciple. You give a bad name to disciples. When you live a life being pulled away from his presence, unsubmitted, distraction is the enemy of godly discipleship. Distraction is the enemy of godly purpose, because in the next line, you see, she was distracted with all her preparations, and she came to him. She came to him. What's that mean? She wasn't with him. She had to go to him. So she was away from him. Where's Mary? At his feet. Already at his feet. So she allowed her situations, her distractions to rob her purpose, because purpose is only found at the feet of Jesus. You cannot find purpose anywhere else. You might find energy, you might find some sort of sense of accomplishment or fulfillment, but that stuff is all temporary. Purpose is only discovered at the feet of Jesus. She not only was her discipleship under attack and her purpose under attack, but distraction, that spirit had stolen her relationships. It attacks godly relationships. Watch what she does. She is bold. Now, this chick is bold. She looked right at Jesus and she said, Lord, do you even care? She started telling Jesus off. You know you're desperate you're distracted when you start telling Jesus off. Like, you just gonna sit there with your Jesus self? With your long hair and your little flippy floppies? You're just gonna sit there and let me be tormented over here. And she says, do you care? And that my sister has left me? Do you see her over here? She done left me. You see, distractions will always attack your relationship up and your relationships out. Distractions, they have a way of destroying godly relationships. They have a way of destroying godly community. They're here to attack godly community. Because watch this, she says, my sister has left me to do the serving by myself. Anybody ever felt alone? You ever dealt with loneliness? Y'all just gonna leave me up here alone? Like I'm feeling lonely right now. You're just gonna leave me? Plain City, can I get some help? Y'all feeling lonely? You ever felt lonely? Loneliness is a direct result of distracted living. Loneliness is a direct result of being out of his presence. Because how can you be lonely in the presence of someone like him? And what happens is we allow life to accidentally, it's not purpose, but we allow it to pull us away from his presence. And then we end up in a state called loneliness. You know, this generation, I love this generation. These cats coming up are awesome. They're not tough. They are awesome. They're a little tender, all right? But they have purpose, okay? And they are amazing. And you know what I love? Our young adults have been chasing God. Man, on Tuesday nights, they've been pouring out. And if you are a young adult and you are not in discipleship and you are not coming to the services with our young adults, you are crazy. You are missing out. You know, our student ministries are banging. They are amazing. They are pouring into our students like never before. This is some of the best student ministries I've ever seen, and I've always been connected to student ministry. And these are incredible. And if you have a teenager and they are not in student ministry here, you are crazy. Because the Lord wants them in godly community, and distraction, the enemy wants them out of godly community. Wants them to feel lonely. You know, this generation feels liked but lonely. How many likes did I get on this post? Let me go check that real quick. How many? Oh, they didn't like that. Oh, look at all the likes I got right here. I'm trending. Liked but lonely. Are you living to be liked by some or to be like the one? You know, 58% of Americans feel like not one person in the world knows them well. Recent survey, 58% said not even one other person in the world knows them well. Lonely is an epidemic. And we're the most connected, allegedly, that we've ever been. Loneliness, you know, it's more dangerous to your health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is physically dangerous to your health. It increases dementia by 50%. Loneliness. Loneliness is more dangerous to you physically than obesity. I'm gonna make a shirt that says I'm fat and friendly. Just to cover the bases. You know, it don't matter how many people are around you. You can be in a crowded room and be lonely. And you know, Florida is the third most populated state in America. And we're on the list of most lonely states, we're number 11, most lonely states in America. The bottom of the list, the least lonely state is Utah. But I figure it's because all the Mormons out there, they marry like 3 or 4 women. They have 15 kids. They ain't never alone. They would kill to have a few minutes by themselves. You know, y'all pray for them out in Utah. But it not only attacks godly community, distraction attacks godly character, because she ends her statement with this. You gonna tell her to help me? Help me. I don't care what she's doing in your presence. Help me. What I'm doing matters. Help me. It creates a self-centered expression in our life. Instead of being others-centered, we're self-centered. The enemy is at work in distractions. Verse 41 says, but the Lord answered. Here's Jesus' response. Martha, Martha, man, you are spun up. Like, chill out, lady. I don't know what version that is, but chill out, lady. You're worried about all kind of stuff, distracted by all kind of things. But only one thing matters. Only one thing. And Mary has chosen the good part, it said. That word good part is beneficial. He's saying the stuff you're doing isn't right and wrong stuff. This ain't good and evil. This is just, there's something better. You can be doing all kind of fine things, but they are distractions if they pull you out of his presence. There's just something better, and it's his presence. Sitting at the feet of Jesus, his presence, it's just better. Whatever you think you are into, it's just better. It's just better. And it says, and what she has will not be taken away, or literally pulled away, distracted from her. In other words, I'm not going to let your wounds pull her out of her purpose. There are some people in your life that if you're not careful, their brokenness will cause you to leave your purpose. Your purpose is too precious to allow your crazy aunt and your ridiculous sister to pull you out of his presence. She can wait. His presence is all that matters. But I love this. He said, but there was one thing that's necessary. Just one thing. I want you to get this. Because the one thing that's necessary is not allowing anything, good or bad, to pull you away from his presence. That's the one thing. Psalms tells us this. One thing I've asked. One thing I've asked from the Lord. And this is what I'm seeking, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all my days, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. There is one thing that I want, and it is your presence. It is your presence. It's not my agenda. I want your presence. I won't settle for nothing less. I'm going to meditate in your temple. I'm going to call down and look at the beauty of your presence. I want you all the days of my life. Philippians goes on with the same thing. Brothers and sisters, I do not regard myself as having taken hold of it yet. But watch this. But there's one thing I do. Forgetting what lies behind me and reaching toward what lies ahead. Watch this. I grab the stuff of life and I press on toward the goal for the prize, for the upward calling of Christ. Hey, the goal is his presence. The prize is a fruitful life. When you make his presence your goal, you get a fruitful life. Man, who don't want that? You've been trying to dig out fruitfulness for yourself. He said, no, quit with the struggle stuff. Get in my presence, hear my purpose, receive the fruit. Jesus didn't respond with, this is right and this is wrong and all that. He just said, there's a better thing. And watch this. Anything, no matter if it's good or bad, anything can be a distraction if it creates an exit in your relationship. Marriages, listen to this. Anything is a distraction if it creates an exit in your relationship. That amazing opportunity that you got, guys, that incredible job that offered you a double salary and you got this crazy opportunity and blah, blah, blah. And it's just got to be God, right? For somehow, when it's a lot of money, it's always God. And so God just did this incredible thing, and what you didn't calculate was that you were going to be away from your family every night. Your wife going to have to raise the kids by herself. Kids are going to grow up without a father. You're there, but you ain't there. You know that? You know what I'm talking about? Anybody seen people there, but they ain't there? And you can't serve, and you can't walk in your purpose in the church because, it's my only day off. And you got all these things that, listen, it's created an exit for you. You've exited the relationship with your wife. You've exited the relationship with your husband. You've exited the relationship with your children. You've exited the relationship with your father. Anything can be a distraction if it creates an exit in your life. Jesus was constantly going off, getting away from everybody, making room for time with the Father. Listen, don't let the urgent crowd out the important. We so often let the urgent crowd out the important. I learned years ago, listen, never allow someone else's lack of planning to create a crisis for me. Somebody needs to go to work tomorrow. Your lack of planning ain't going to create a crisis for me. You're going to have to work that out. And watch this. Here's remember I said, hold on to the word also? Everybody say also. And she had a sister named Mary who was also seated at the Lord's feet. You see, Martha had lost her purpose in her serving, but Mary also served. Okay, listen. If she also something, it's because she was doing something else and being in his presence. So you mean to tell me that she was doing the preparations and she got in his presence? Yes. She also sat at his feet. And earlier we read that Mary had left Martha in the kitchen. That means she was in there prepping. She was in there doing the work. But here's what she learned. When his presence enters the room, my work stops. My agenda goes away when his presence enters the room. When his presence is here, all my stuff has to go. When it comes to getting in his presence, I ain't got time for silliness. I've got to get in his presence. And the problem is we put more emphasis on preparation than we do presence. You know who doesn't burn out in life? People that are in the presence. So we get this as pastors, we get people all the time. You know, I've said it, you've said it, we've all said it. Oh, I'm just burned out right now. And I'm going to say, I'll just smile at you and be like, all right, baby. Okay, sit down. What I really want to say is, get in his presence. The problem is, you hadn't been in his presence. The people who don't burn out are the ones who know how to walk away from the preparations and walk into his presence. And then they walk out of that and they go back to preparations and then they come back to his presence because his presence is their source. His presence is their resource. His presence is their energy. His presence is their covering. Your presence, God. The working for him should never trump the sitting with him. So what is pulling you? What needs or desires are pulling you, or is it his presence that pulls you? If the engine that drives your relationship with God is situational desperation, you're distracted. Think about that. I know people right now that are in church, all of our campuses, and you're here today, and if I see you, I know you're here because you've had some trouble in your marriage in the last couple of weeks. There's some crisis you're facing. Your kid acted up. Like there's something, right? There's some crisis. So it's situational desperation that's driving you to the throne. And God said, listen, if you will just be in the throne, the problem don't seem so big. The problem, I get to handle the problem if you're in my presence. If you're dealing with my business, I get to step in on your business. But if you want to handle your business by yourself, go ahead. Desperation does not drive relationship. His presence does. Desire for the presence of God. How are you building that into your life every day? I woke up yesterday morning, and God gave me these 8 things. And the first one, he's never done this like this before. First he woke me up early, which I didn't like. To be honest, I was like, come on, Jesus, like, chill out. And so he woke me up early, and then, the first thought to my head was this first point. He said, prioritize presence over problems. And I was like, man, that's good. And I just rolled over. And he said, you might want to write that down, buddy. And so I said, oh, yeah. So I reached over, grabbed my phone, and as soon as I grabbed my phone, these started flowing. And he gave me these right here. I want to lay them out for you. Prioritize presence over problems. If I don't get to all of them, they're in your notes. Prioritize presence over problems. So sometimes we make the problem so grand that his presence is so far away from us it looks small. But if I'm real close to his presence, the problem doesn't have any comparison to the grandness of his glory. It's all about perspective. Some of you have been standing too close to your problem and not close enough to his presence. Prioritize people over projects. Come on. Some of y'all working on a hobby or a thing, and you just bypassing time with your family. Some of y'all are working on this project. You're trying to build some kind of portfolio of yourself and that no one cares about. And the people that love you are just wasting away without you, all right? And so, number 3, prioritize your no to allow your yes to God. Galatians says, am I trying to win the approval of man or God? Right? It's a good question to ask. You know, my daughter we played soccer. Both my kids played soccer, and they were goalies because they were bigger than everybody else, and they were slow because they were white, and they could not run. These little Hispanic kids was blowing them away. I was like, yes, that is fast, all right? And so why don't you stand inside that net? Just keep, this is your area, right? And so, sorry to my kids. But the coaches came, and they were pretty good at it. And the coaches came, and especially my daughter, and they said, hey, your daughter's really gifted in this. I think I'd like to have her on my travel soccer team. And I said, man, that's cool, right? It feels good when your kid gets recognized and people want your kid. And so I said, man, that's awesome. Tell me about the commitment. Tell me about what's expected. And once we compared the commitment up against God's purpose for our family, it clearly fell short. Like not even a, you mean they're going to have to be out here on Wednesday nights instead of in the presence of God with the other community of young people? No, that ain't going to work for me. You mean to tell me we're going to be traveling on Sundays? No, that is not a part of our purpose. Because I am not trying to raise kids who stop balls from going in nets. I'm trying to raise kids that can hear the voice of God for their life, that can reach out to their friends, that can share hope with somebody, that can lay hands on the sick and see God heal them. I'm trying to raise kids who understand what it means to sit in the presence of God. You can find some other kid with no purpose to catch balls. But that's not true. That kid has purpose. But they need somebody who says no. Practice this with me. Say no. Come on, Plain City, South Shore, everybody. Y'all say it with some, say no. No. Do it in Spanish. Say no. Bilingual. And you say no in 2 languages. Say it in Plain City. Say no. I'm good. Look at you. Saying no in all kind of languages. God's setting you free. Use your no so you can say yes to him. Prioritize your purpose over popularity. You're not here to become the person other people think you should be. You are here to become exactly what God designed you to be. Prioritize purpose over popularity. Prioritize God's disruptions over good distractions. Just because it's a good thing don't mean it's a God thing. Do you have room in your schedule for God to interrupt you? Do you have room in your schedule today for God to interrupt you? I know there's a restaurant calling your name. And I know they're going to close down if you don't make it. Outback will just fold up if you ain't there today. But can God disrupt your plans for a minute? Can you give him time to disrupt you? Prioritize progress over perfection. Prioritize the present over the past. You think about social media. You know what that is? Many of us, we're celebrating someone else's past moment at the sake of our current one. Sitting at the table, celebrating somebody else's moment, missing mine. Prioritize the present over the past. Stop living in a place that you were only meant to visit. Prioritize proactive habits over reactive habits. Have you planned, like put it in your schedule to spend time with God? Proactively plan it. You waiting on God to show up and mess it up. Plan it. So I'm going to meet you today at noon. Everybody else can wait. I'm going to spend some time with you. Colossians tells us, set your mind on things that are above, not on things on earth. What are you planning? I think we should all treat our distractions kind of like the adulterous woman of Proverbs. He says, keep your way far from her and do not go near the door of her house. Otherwise, you will give your vigor, your life to others. Man, your years will be given to the cruel one. Who or what are you cheating on God with today? What distraction is keeping you out of his purpose? Church, God is wanting to do incredible things with us. But we can't do any of it if we won't allow him to take control of our schedule, of our life, of my agenda, of my purpose. If I can't be in his presence, sitting at the feet of Jesus, surrender now. The only hope is at the feet of Jesus. The only hope for your family is at the feet of Jesus. Counseling is good. It's all good stuff. It's fine. But not at the cost of his feet. Good advice from family is awesome. But that doesn't substitute being at his feet. His presence, sitting in his presence, sets us free. At all of our campuses, God is wanting to do a miracle today. He wants to show up and sit with you in his presence. That is the greatest miracle you will ever see. Humanity sitting in the presence of the King. And that's what he wants. It's not something you got to beg for. It's something he wants. He's begging you for it. In fact, at all of our campuses, South Shore, I know Pastor Joe's in there, Pastor Hector's covering for me at Plant City. We invite all the worship team to come up at every campus here. And I want every atmosphere to get ready for God's presence. God is here. God is moving. And I'm going to release the campuses. But before I do, I want to pray this blessing over this atmosphere. Father, I release the atmosphere to you. Every agenda, every schedule, everything I had planned, everything I might plan, I surrender it to you. At every campus, Plant City, South Shore, we surrender to you. We say, God, you have your way. We're not leaving here until we've gotten in your presence. We're not getting out of here until you've poured. We wrestle you like Jacob. We ain't leaving until you bless us. There's a tenacity to my desire to be in your presence because it's the only hope I have. Where else can I go? So Plant City, South Shore, Tampa, open heavens. Open heavens over every church. Father, send your presence. Rest on us.